Hello, everybody. My name is Tanya, and welcome to my Art Creations channel. And what I have for you today are these two Christmas trees. One I did in watercolor, and one I did with gouache. I did both of them using the same fun techniques, and they're both the same style, but just use different paints. So the one on the left is the watercolor, and that one I did in a previous video, and I will link that one to this video. And the one I have for you today is this one, which is the one done in gouache. I did separate videos because it was just easier that way. You will see little glimpses of the watercolor gouache in this video, but like I said, it is a separate video. So I hope you find this inspirational and enjoy these techniques that I will show you how to create this whimsical Christmas tree. So these are my gouache paints, and what I use are Viridian hue, turquoise blue, and magenta and white. So those are the colors that I use. I use those two brushes right there. And I use some masking fluid. I use some gel pens, a silver and a white gel pen, and a white acrylic pen, Posca pen. And then I will also be using some rubbing alcohol in that dropper and salt. So the exact same things that I used with the first one, except just different paints. And I'm using the Meeden watercolor paper, cold pressed, 10 by 7, and each one is done. I just basically just halved the paper and did two triangles for the trees, so they're about 5 by 7, and I wet them down really well. So wet down your triangle for your tree, but not overly wet, but just a nice amount of water. And take your masking fluid and drop your masking fluid on your paper. So use that triangle as your guide. And what happens is the masking paper, the masking fluid, sorry, will bleed out, kind of like feather out. See how it's doing that? And create this neat feathered edge to your painting instead of like a harder edge. Um, you want to let that dry completely, and then we're going to start with the tree. So make sure your masking fluid is dry when you start this. So I'm doing wet on wet, so I wet my background in my tree and added my magenta to the background. Now, as you can see, I'm using a watery mixture of the gouache. So it's kind of like, just more of an opaque watercolor, really. So then I add my turquoise blue to the triangle for the tree, and then adding some of the Viridian on the inside, sprinkling the edges with some salt. Now I'm going to come in with my dropper with the rubbing alcohol and just press it against the paper and slowly press the rubbing alcohol through the dropper to create those blobs. Now when you do this, you do not want your paper super wet, or else the blobs will spread out too much. They won't create those nice round ones like that. That's what I was looking for. And these blobs are going to be the ornaments. So I rubbed off make sure that's completely dry, and then rub off your masking fluid. And as you see, that's what you get after you rub off the masking fluid. The masking fluid are those neat creations with the feathered edge, and those are going to be the lights. So I am wetting my lights with some water, and here I'm using my magenta, and I'm just dropping in my magenta. Now, of course, you can do those lights another color. You could use yellow, but I just wanted to stick with the same colors that I was using for the background and the tree. Okay, so now I'm working on the trunk, and I have a thicker mixture here of the Viridian with the pink, which kind of creates that dark color, and then I add a little bit of the blue. So I'm just mixing those three colors together to create that kind of that dark color there. And did the trunk and the top, and then it's using little flicks of my brush to add some branches. And it's just kind of like a creamy mixture of the gouache here. And you could let this dry and come back with the pink like I did. I let it dry just a little bit and came back with the pink, the magenta, I should say, to add a little bit of brightness to the branches and to the bottom there. So after everything is dry, I come in with my white gel pen to add the doodles, the fun doodles, to my blobs. So um, you can do any type of design you like with these ornaments. I just did basically some circular designs and some starburst designs and some stripes. But you can let your imagination go with this and do stars, which I think would be really cute. Kind of something you'd see on an ornament. You could add glitter, whatever you want, just leave the blobs the way they are, because sometimes those blobs are pretty cool just the way they are. But since it was since it was for a Christmas tree, I wanted to add more detail to make them a little bit more detailed than I sometimes do. A little topper, as you can see on there on the tree. So I'm just scrubbing out some of the paint there and dabbing it away. And I'm taking some white gouache, just adding it for the topper there. And then just dropping in a little bit of the pink. Kind of looks like a fuzzy pom-pom. I wasn't sure what I was going for, if I wanted it to be like a light or a fuzzy pom-pom look. And then I'm adding, see, it's done wet on wet. Then I add in a little bit of the Posca pen. You can do that with acrylic pens, which are kind of fun, and it'll kind of spread out like paint. So, because those Posca pens are nice and opaque. So now I'm starting the lights. So I'm just taking some of that magenta gouache, just a watery, and dropping it in the light area there. And just spreading it around. I don't want too harsh of a line when I drop in the magenta there, so I am kind of kind of doing it like a wet on wet technique for those lights there. So now while it's still wet, I came with my Posca pen and just dropping in, just tapping my Posca pen there on the lights and see how, since it is wet, you can see how the acrylic from the Posca pen spreads. You could do that with gouache because that's what I did. I did use white gouache with the watercolor to do this instead of the white Posca pen. So you can use gouache. You can also use bleed-proof white. But that Posca pen works good for this too. So I was adding a little bit more dots here and there. And then I came back after um, that was dry and added another white dot. So I'm just trying to create the illusion of like glowing lights. So now I'm taking my uh, silver gel pen and just adding some swirly curly cues to the tree. Some dots here and there. Trying to add just a little bit of a sparkle, which it doesn't show up too much on the camera, the silver. And then taking my white gel pen and also adding more dots. Dots, dots. I like dots. Um, and then going over the dots with some color. Just like a thin, watery version of the gouache with the pink, and then adding some blue on the bottom there. Just adding color here and there to make it more colorful. This is a pretty colorful tree. So there it is, all done. I hope you guys like it and you guys give it a try. And thank you for giving me your time and choosing this video to watch. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.